Is that your first title?
No.
Worked on?
No, so basically it's a series that's existed since 1989. It's actually the 7th game in the series, but the 2nd game in the series that I've personally worked on.
Okay. How do you know when a game is finished?
A game is never truly finished. When a game is finished is basically when you decide, I'm going to put my pencils down and see how this goes out in a while. Because, as with any artist, whether or not you're a musician, a painter, or a game developer, there's always going to be ways that you can look to improve a game, even after the day you release it. So I guess a release date is the date that you decide, I'm done working on this, let's see how it goes.
So what inspires you?
What inspires me to make games was basically science fiction movies and stories from way back when. I mean, I was a huge fan of films like Blade Runner and just sci-fi. I mean, Stargate is one of my favorite TV series because I love series and shows and movies that create a universe that expands beyond what you're able to see within your peripheral vision. I mean, when you think of an environment and you start to conceptualize what that is like outside of the scope of the movie, that's the most inspiring thing. And to create a game that inspires that imagination for the players is really what drives us to make a good game.
Now, so I was going to ask that question, but say apart from the sci-fi and stuff, is there anything else out there that inspires sort of the ideas you come up with?
Not so much sci-fi. I mean, I watch a lot of people play other games as well, so I like to watch the way people enjoy games, especially their favorite games, because it gives you a lot of good ideas as to what people are after. So a lot of people will play games to get inspiration. I like watching people play games to get inspiration.
Any particular games that stand out?
I was a huge fan of Mass Effect, and what was actually interesting bit of trivia with Mass Effect. Now, the Tex Murphy games have been going since 1989, and in an interview with the developers of Mass Effect, they were asked what inspired you to create your dialogue system, and they said the Tex Murphy series. And so we learned that they were inspired by our series, and I am inspired by their series. So there's a bit of cross-inspiration happening there.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your most important designing tool? Is there something special you need in your workspace?
I could not live without Adobe After Effects. That basically helps me to do a lot of the 3D and a lot of the visual effects, especially with the Element 3D software that comes with After Effects. I mean, the other people on my team would say the Unity engine and 3D Studio Max for their modeling and engine creation. But for me, my jam has always been Adobe After Effects. I mean, I've been using it for 10 years and I wouldn't give it up for the world.
Is there an element of game design you enjoy working with most, and why?
Probably creating the cinematics, like the cutscenes. I also enjoy doing music, so I'm also doing the music for this game. So I love doing orchestral compositions and be able to add that to the cinematics that we create, and just create that overall atmosphere for the game. That's definitely the most enjoyable part for me.
So what, I guess, you play some instruments then?
Yeah, I played piano for like many, many years, and then I got into orchestral composition for as a hobby, and then eventually, I was commissioned to do a few projects on the side, which made me realize, I could probably give it a shot for this game.
Any orchestral music or classical music that you particularly like?
I'm huge fans of all manner of film music, but my favorite composers of film music would have to be like Jerry Goldsmith and Danny Elfman, because they had some really good hits in the 90s. I mean, of course, Total Recall was one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, which is also in the sci-fi realm, which is a Jerry Goldsmith classic, so people will probably hear a lot of inspirations from him and James Horner and those kind of guys in the Poison Corn soundtrack.
And you kind of addressed this already, but how did you start making games, and why do you make games?
Basically, I started because I played the earlier games in the Tex Murphy series when I was 9 years old. And the whole reason why I got into making games or doing multimedia was because of the immersive environments and how inspiring this series was. So to actually be working on that same series that inspired me way back as a 9-year-old is absolutely sublime.
Are there any specific visual elements that, when you played it when you were young, that stood out that just kind of stuck with you?
I think it ties back to the cinematics. I think being able to play a game that felt like a really, really good movie, yet still be on a PC desktop, was mind-blowing to me. Because to me, this was back in 1994, and PCs were just starting to emerge as being a very good living room entertainment tool. To be able to see that level of detail and immersion come out of a computer monitor was what really blew me away.
How about have you virtual reality. Have you dabbled with that? Or?
Yeah, so this game does support virtual reality, so we have been working with it quite extensively, and it does have full support at the moment. The jury's still out whether or not it's going to last. I mean, it's come and gone before, but I think now the technology has just been enhanced so much. It is basically given itself a worthy shot in this industry. For our sake, we really do hope it does succeed.
How did your first sale or game success, however you might define that, change the way you design games?
Well, the most recent game that we released, the one before the one we're developing now, was actually a Kickstarter project, and it was a successfully funded Kickstarter project. So to us, that was a massive success. And how it changed the way we develop games is it made us appreciate just how important audience feedback is to make a good game. And things like conventions as well, being able to watch how people play the games gives you the perfect indication of exactly what you're doing right and exactly what you're doing wrong.
What role do games or the game designer have in society?
I think because the game industry is it's actually almost overtaken or just has overtaken Hollywood in terms of overall revenue. I mean, you look at some of the big hitters like Grand Theft Auto. When you go and buy a movie ticket, you're spending like $8-12 or something, and you're going to see it once. But when you buy a game, you're spending between $60 and $80 per copy. And when you look at a game that sells over 1 million copies, that's a hell of a lot of money. So you can kind of understand how the industry is swayed towards that. I'm a bit disappointed how some of the big AAA hard hitters have started to take advantage of that and sort of saturated with things like loot crates and all of this kind of stuff just to make money out of games, because games should always be a form of entertainment first and foremost. But I'm just really happy to see that it's become an industry that has come to the forefront of digital entertainment in general.
And you touched on this also, but what additional movies, books, games, or other creative media in science fiction or fantasy have inspired you?
Well, of course, Blade Runner, that's definitely a first and foremost. I'm a fan of all sorts of sci-fi. I love, any film that challenges the mind, so I like some of Christopher Nolan's stuff, like Interstellar and Inception, things like that really inspired me. I'm a huge fan of Dark City, which was a sci-fi film made by Alex Proyas, and because that had a really film noir element, and our games have a bit of a film noir element as well. But basically, any sci-fi story that challenges the mind involves things like time travel, that kind of stuff. Things that you really have to think about and maybe watch twice to understand what's going on.
Okay. Is there a game you want to create and haven't done so yet, and what is it?
Once this IP is over and done with, I definitely want to stay in the sci-fi realm. And I want to have something that involves some kind of interplanetary stuff, because at the moment we're restricted to Earth within this game series, because it's set in only 2050. But for a new IP, I'd like to have detective elements that expand beyond the planet Earth, that maybe work their way into other universes.
So what in science, say, really inspires you?
What, in science?
Yeah.
I was a huge fan as a kid of reading up about science, about quantum theory and black holes and stuff like that. Granted, I didn't understand a lot of it back then, but I was always fascinated. I was always watching sort of Neil deGrasse Tyson, Carl Sagan, all those kind of people talking about just the way interdimensionals, multi-dimensions, multiverse theory, all of that kind of stuff. It was just absolutely fascinating because it seems like a limitless array of knowledge about a very limitless thing, the universe, which provides people with a limitless variety of stories to tap into.
Yeah. So one of my goals here is to introduce more kids to engineering through science fiction.
Yeah.
Now your game is a little darker, a little more adult, so yes. I'm just exploring, as far as, can kids get into this game, or is it more of a...
They can. I mean, this game probably carries a PG-13 rating in the same way that a relatively non-violent action film would do. So there's things like explosions, there's things that might be a bit scary or spooky. There's maybe a little bit of blood, but not in a violent way, and maybe something that's on the floor or something like that. So it's like an old detective story. So, you will have some thriller elements that aren't so much recommended for the kids, but aren't necessarily going to scare kids. So, but in terms of getting them interested in science and sci-fi and all that kind of stuff, I guess the best thing that kids can get out of these sort of games is just ways to enrich their imagination and get them asking questions about what they see. You know, oh, there's a space station on Earth. How does that orbit the Earth? Well, let's talk about gravity. That kind of thing.
So you mentioned that this game is sort of a mystery detective. How did you go about developing sort of the mystery or the puzzle that, you know, people might solve?
We actually have a very fantastic writer who's actually a novelist who writes books alongside us at the same time he makes the games. His name is Aaron Connors, and he's a really good sort of film noir writer himself. And so he basically writes novels and then adapts them into gameplay elements. So he knows, you know, he's huge fans of like Chandler novels and all that kind of stuff. So he really knows how to do the dialogue and how to do the mystery, but with that modern sci-fi flavor. So instead of 1940s, we're talking the 2040s.
Yeah, looking at the characters that you have depicted for the game, it seems sort of, film noir.
Yeah, he wears the fedora and the trench coat and the wingtips and everything. So he's like a man out of time, a man born 100 years too late.
Yeah. All right, that's all the questions I have. Do you have any final thoughts or comments?
No, I mean, if you're interested in checking out the Poison Pawn, it's basically the Poison Pawn, and that's PAWN, like the chess piece.com, and check it out. There's lots of material there, and I really appreciate the opportunity to do the interview.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Please visit ChrisAlvarez.com for more cool stuff. That's ChrisAlvarez.com. Thanks for listening and keep imagining the future.